everyone. Global Karen here. Gonna be doing a reaction to the Mysterious Mr. Enter top 10 worst cartoons of the 2010s. It is part two, and let's get into the final parts of part. I did his top five to one. Let's get into it.
So I plead with you, my plaza folks, please turn in all of your remotes. We could make the plaza safe for all. So what do you say? Let's end this brawl.
Alright, so maybe shows by big name stars like Daniel Tosh and Stephen Colbert don't work out too well. Maybe we need someone who actually has experience in making good shows. Like the guy who made Moral Oral. He's got some real talent. Let's give him a show. What could possibly go wrong? Oh, I know. Animation Domination HD. Or otherwise known as ADHD. Because we're funny like that. If you don't know who they are, it's a Fox animation block, which is all you need to know. ADHD is responsible for a series of shorts on YouTube called Scientifically Accurate. What they do is make parodies of cartoon-themed songs to make as many dick jokes as possible. And if I counted internet animations, they would be on this list. I don't generally like to talk shit about other YouTube series, but ADHD Scientifically Accurate is just garbage. 25% of the jokes are things that you've heard over and over again. Oh, did you know that the Bikini Bottom Atoll was a place for nuclear test sites? I suppose that kind of comedy might feel secondary next to complaining that we have Pokemon looking like gears in an ice cream cone. The other 75% of their comedy is trying to figure out how to talk about penises in each one of these theme song parodies. Even if you think that they're finally going to get through a song without a dick joke... Oh, there it is. So, let's take the guy who made Moral Oral and let's put him there. What kind of show would that create? An absolute train wreck. That's what it would create. Actually, it's worse than it sounds.
Well, I can't wait till I get old and my memories start to unfold about high school USA. These are the good old days. My obituary will relay all my fun times here at high school USA.
So for the previous lists, I had a bit of a rule. Every single cartoon needed to have at least 13 episodes. That's generally considered a full season. And while shows like Adult Party Cartoon and Alan Gregory were terrible, some of the worst out there, they were mercy killed early. High School USA had a total of 12 episodes. It was right on the line. But as I watched through each and every episode, the show was so bad that it basically forced me to change that rule. There would be no justice in the world if this show did not make it on the list of the worst cartoons of the 2010s. Some shows just go the extra mile. High School USA is legitimately one of the worst pieces of media that I've ever had to experience. Yes, it is only number 5 on this list. It's been a very interesting decade. Let me give you a taste of what this show is like. The first episode is about bullying. It's titled Bullying. One of the main characters, Brad, realizes that he's a bully. He goes to a club for bullies where he's outed as being a bully, and then he's made fun of by the entire school. They go on and on about saying that Brad didn't choose to be a bully, and that he was born that way. I'm not looking into things. That's the joke. They thought that it would be funny to make a coming out story, metaphorically linking being a bully to being gay. Is it offensive? You know what? I don't know. That doesn't matter. What matters is that it's desperately trying to be offensive, like an internet troll. The second episode ends triumphantly with all the boys texting dick pics. Because who the hell gives a fuck? This is the kind of show that exists for no other reason than to get a rise out of people. Whether it succeeds or fails, it's garbage on the premise alone. In terms of badly trying to be shocking, this show is absolutely the worst. When Brickleberry pours AIDS into soup or something, it's not funny, it's just whatever. But the types of jokes that this show tells are just really not cool. Okay, let me put it like this. Family Guy is farting at a funeral. Brickleberry is farting at a funeral and then accidentally shitting your pants. This show is like being at a seminar for fire safety and then playing with a blowtorch, saying that that's the cool thing to do. These kind of jokes would be tasteless at the best of times, but in the 2010s, when social tensions have gotten worse and worse, this is the equivalent of playing with matches in a room full of dynamite. I'm not offended by this show personally, but this is just not the time to be tasteless like this. It tackles all the typical adult cartoon stuff. Sex changes, drugs, and it does each and every single one of them poorly. So poorly that one of its 12 episodes got banned. This is the kind of show that wanted to do an episode on abortion. This kind of show. And if you're looking at this, you might see that it looks familiar. Doesn't this kind of look like Archie? Yes it does. It's a quote-unquote parody of Archie, where each of the characters are given the most basic parody treatment, and it's used to tell the laziest adult jokes you can imagine. And this would all be understandable if it wasn't for the fact that the guy who made Moral girl Earl made this. Remember that show? It had an episode that went into the lives of women who were sexually assaulted, and it dealt with that issue with a lot of respect. And as such, it was one of the most chilling pieces of animation that I had ever seen. How do you go from that to this? Look, I could go on with this one, but there's still 5 fucking cartoons to go. And this kind of show really just deserves its own deep dive into every single problem wrong with it. I'm not the biggest fan of Archie. I've never seen the show or read any of the comics, but even as a non-fan, I feel that the franchise has been desecrated. I could only imagine a show that I actually cared about getting a similar treatment.
So I plead with you, my plaza folks, please turn in all of your remotes. We can make the plaza safe for all. So what do you say? Let's end this brawl. It's party time!
I haven't fully watched the reboot of Powerpuff Girls, but I've seen this episode and I've seen like a second episode. It's awful. Do not watch Powerpuff Girls. This one, people will tell you, even though you watch the old version, it's not that good either. Me, I grew up with Powerpuff Girls. I don't know what I feel about Powerpuff Girls because I haven't seen it for a very long time. But please, you can watch the old version, but don't watch this one. This one's it's utterly trash and terrible. It's a bad reboot. It's a terrible reboot. Just don't watch it.
I'm just gonna cut to the chase on this one. The Powerpuff Girls 2016 is one of the few shows out there that makes me feel legitimately unclean. A lot of shows I've reviewed in the past, I've been too angry, getting shouty and ranty for no good reason. However, every so often, there's a show that I feel that I should have been much harsher on. And the Powerpuff Girls reboot is one of the most prime examples in my mind. So please excuse me if I get a little bit ranty in this segment. This show disgusts me in ways that Seth MacFarlane only wishes he could. Remember the episode that I reviewed, Painbow? It had 6-year-old girls twerking. And twerking is generally known as a very sexual dance. A lot of people commented on my original video, basically saying that, nuh-uh, twerking is actually based on an African fertility dance. And I'm all like, you do know what fertility means, right? Well, if you don't know, it kinda has something to do with sex. Well, after that, after everyone complained about the show having 6-year-old girls twerking, do you know what the show did? They brought Allegro back in another episode called Somewhere Over the Swing Set. And then, after everyone and their grandmother complained about the twerking and explained why it was incredibly perverted for this show to do, this show had these 6-year-old girls twerk again in another episode. They did it again. Yeah. In the episode Once Upon a Townsville, we had an adult princess giving a prolonged kiss on the mouth to Buttercup, once again a child. And it's something that went on. And then we had the infamous Jared Shapiro incident. What the show did was took the likeness of a writer, gave him a similar name to the writer, and then made him a love interest in the show. They made the character insert of an adult the love interest of a child. I'm sure I'm not the only one who sees a problem with this, which is good, but it's very, very worrying that no one on the show staff saw that this was a problem. This is a very specific kind of bad. This is not only a thing that grown-ass adults shouldn't do, this is the kind of thing that you shouldn't have to tell grown-ass adults that they should not do. This goes beyond common sense. I didn't think we needed to have this meeting before we started writing, but you probably should not put pedophilic implications into your show. That's not even lesson 1. It's not even lesson 0. This is something that normal people tend to understand that we shouldn't do. And that makes me very, very concerned. I'm not saying that anyone behind the show is a pedophile. Let me make that very clear. But even in that case, there's a problem. The problem is that they clearly didn't think jack shit when they went into writing this one. I'll fully admit that I've been too harsh on unfortunate implications of the past, but these are some of the most blatant, forefront, unfortunate implications that I've ever seen, where you have to be a specific kind of dense to not see them. And when everyone, literally everyone tells you that this is a bad idea, and you not only stick to your guns by doing this, but you do it worse, it means you're a special kind of dense. And you want to know what the worst part of all of this is? That alone would probably put this show on my list, but the pedophilic implications are like only a cherry on top of the sundae with how bad Powerpuff Girls 2016 is. A lot of terrible cartoon reboots came out in the 2010s that completely missed the point of the original, but Powerpuff is the worst of them all. Hell, I'd even take that terrible Ghostbusters reboot over this trash fire of a show, because Powerpuff Girls 2016 has all the bad aspects of the 2010s, with none of the good aspects. This show clearly wanted to cash in on the whole idea of girl power, a common selling point in the 2010s. It tries to put forward a progressive message, but it trips over its high heels as it goes through the starting gate, a common failing of girl power shows in the 2010s. But this one does it especially badly. For example, I've never seen a show that claimed to be feminist actively despise the female anatomy. You remove Miss Keene's breasts, and then you sent away Miss Bellum because hers were too big. May I ask why? Oh, that's right, because Miss Bellum isn't a message that you wanted to give to little girls. You want them to be ashamed of the bodies that they might grow into. Completely understood. This show is disgusting. I've said that before, but I have to keep saying, not only is this show disgusting, it's disgusting in the worst morally abhorrent ways. Girl power! Our heroes are constantly bickering, terrible people, and they constantly get captured, needing to be rescued by the men, including the mayor on multiple occasions. This is even ignoring the fact that this is a reboot. What the fuck did you do to any of these characters? Disrespect? No, I don't think disrespect begins to describe it. You ever hear that conspiracy about The Last Jedi that the guy behind it just wanted to destroy the Star Wars franchise? I don't know if I believe that, but I believe that here. This show feels very much like intentional sabotage. It feels very much like the people behind the show hated the Powerpuff Girls and just wanted to destroy it by any means necessary. Oh my god, the professor. Why? Why is he like this? Why is he the stupidest character I've ever seen? Actually, you know what? Don't answer that. I know the answer. 'Cause girl power. And in girl power shows, we gotta make every male authority figure an idiot. Am I somewhere in the ballpark? Or do you just think this cliched ass...
I don't know why it's like that. Why are you doing this? Why you have to do that? Why you have to have a girl show and make the guys act like idiots? It's so ass backwards, and you make your male people who watch these shows and movies hate the show and movies. It's just makes it. It's just stupid.
Joke was funny. Who is the show even for? It assumes that you watch the original using set pieces and plot points from the original, and not giving any introductions to them, but then it shits all over the original. Was this show meant to be hated? Because every single decision into the show makes me hate it more. Like, turning down the original voice actresses for the Powerpuff Girls. And then there was that whole incident with Donnie. I wanted to believe that it was the network's idea to say that a horse turning into a monster was a metaphor for being a trans person, but these are the people who thought it would be cool to have a character look like an adult with a similar name of an adult be an object of affection of a child. And you know what? Let's put aside the implications of Jared Shapiro for a minute. If you can, because it's some of the most disgusting implications that I've ever seen in any show ever. I understand that it's a very, very difficult task to do, but Jared Shapiro gets even worse even if you take all that out. You guys have some serious fucking balls to do something like that in a reboot. You took a character that people loved and adored, and then you made a self-insert character of yourself to have that character be a love interest. Jesus Christ, people, have some fucking tact. A lot of reboots could be described as mistakes were made. Mistakes were made could be the theme song to this one, and it would be better than the theme song it actually has. Which, yes, I did consider for my top 20 worst theme songs list. This show is meant to be a cash-in on the Powerpuff Girls' popularity. Congratulations, Cartoon Network. I never want anything to do with this
Yeah, congratulations. You ruined it.
franchise ever again. At least with Teen Titans Go, I can enjoy the original, and it's not going to have much an effect on the future. Powerpuff Girls 2016 has tainted the franchise for me forever. And now I can't think of this franchise without getting skeeved out. Congratulations.
So I plead with you, my plaza folks, please turn in all of your remotes. We can make the plaza safe for all. So what do you say? Let's end this brawl.
If you have photosensitive epilepsy, then you're gonna have to keep your eyes shut for this one.
We are...
I'm mad that I used to like this show back in the day. I used to like it. But now I got way older. I understand most shows. Problem Solvers is a bad show. It's ugly. The characters are unlikable. The stories in the show is bad. I just don't like the show no more. The show is just garbage. I accept that. This show, I don't know who still loves this show, but it's like I need to reevaluate the show and rewatch the whole thing because it's terrible. No, I don't want y'all rewatch the thing because it's bad.
And that's 95% of the reason that the Problem Solvers is on the list, and this high up. Problem Solvers is a visual atrocity. It has so many colors and so many flashing lights that it could legitimately either cause seizures or some kind of vision problem. To say that it's an eyesore would be a disservice to the problem here. And I came to thinking, was that really justification for putting it this high on the list? I mean, I do hate the Powerpuff Girls a lot more than this show, but then I really thought about it. The Powerpuff Girls was a show that didn't think through its implications, and in turn it had a bunch of pedophilic undertones. I mean, that is incredibly bad, but when you get down to it, the worst thing about it is that it makes the showrunners either look like idiots or perverts. This show has the same problem. It didn't think things through. The difference is that this time that they didn't think things through, it could have caused seizures in their viewers. Someone, somewhere, had to have said that this was a bad idea. Even if everyone who worked on the show was brain dead, the network must have said something. They would be responsible if something happened. It's been a while since Electric Soldier Porygon, but what happened there, exaggerated or not, is still fresh in everyone's minds. The kind of visuals in this show could be considered legitimately dangerous. And the sad part is, even when you get beyond the visuals, the show is garbage. The character designs are ugly, at least the original ones from the show. One of the characters is basically Domokun, and he's the guy that they made most unlikable. And if the visuals aren't bad enough, the voices do not help. This is the kind of show that exists for no other reason than to assault your senses. It's like going to a hard rock concert without actually getting the experience of hearing a band live, just screaming and flashing strobe lights. If this show could smell, it would smell like rotten eggs and sulfur because it thought it smelled like perfume, and it would get a reaction out of its audience. This kind of cluelessness is really unforgivable. I don't think you should, need a license or anything to create art, but I do think that you should have some basic common sense. If it wasn't for the seizure-inducing visuals, I think the show would be garbage, but it probably wouldn't be one of the worst of the decade. There's just way too much competition in that world. But some shows just have that one special niche that they just go all out on.
So I plead with you, my plaza folks, please turn in all of your remotes. We can make the plaza safe for all. So what do you say? Let's end this brawl.
Everything okay in here, sweetie? Get the hell out, Shannon! Get out!
You guys knew that.
Listen, I haven't fully watched Big Mouth. I'm mad that some of the jokes are funny. A little bit funny. I can't laugh at some of these jokes. But you cannot say that the show is bad. Because the show is bad. Even while I don't want to fully watch this show. I don't know what to say about it because I haven't fully watched the show. So I don't really have much opinion about the show. Maybe hear what Mr. Enter had to say about the show, why he hates the show.
This one was coming. And no, I'm not doing the television things again because I don't give a crap. This show does not deserve that much effort. Speaking of shows that disgust me on a visceral level, we have Big Mouth. I understand that this is going to be one of my most controversial picks. Big Mouth is a show that you either really, really love.
Yeah, you really like and really, really hate. Some people are happy with the show, some people love it, some people hate it. Some people are in between, but he's the guy who hates the show.
Or you consider it the worst that you've ever seen. There is no in-between. A lot of people love this show. It even had 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is confusing to me. Even if you like this show, it's not worth 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Now let me get something out of the way really quick. I'm both a sex-repulsed asexual, which means that sexual content in general gives me the heebie-jeebies, but I'm also an American, and we have a culture that's kind of got a stick up our butt about sexuality in general. So that does affect some of my biases towards not liking this show. I'm not going to pretend that I'm not biased. This list is entirely my opinions. Of course I'm biased towards hating these shows. But if I could say something in my defense, the most obvious question about this show that was shot across the internet when it first made a splash was, does this show count as child pornography? Considering that the show frequently showcases the genitalia of characters who are established to be minors. When you have to ask a question like that, believe me, the answer doesn't even really matter. It's one of those questions that, by asking it, you've already admitted that you fucked up beyond recognition. But to be absolutely clear, and to end this debate once and for all, this show does not count as child pornography, because they had to basically skirt the law to make the show. Drawings...
I never think about this show as a child pornography. It's really not. But I don't really blame y'all for saying it, because mostly all these episodes are kids half naked, seeing female. It's just showing how kids grow up when they start developing over the years, like females growing up and how the guys grow up and how they learn how to grow up. that's why some people like it, some people hate it. Some people hate it because it takes it way too far. I think that's the problem with the show. It takes it way too far. Some people like it because it actually teach you lessons about how your sexuality is. But I don't know what to feel about this show. It's just half for me. I don't know. I had to fully watch the show to understand it.
Do count as child pornography in the United States if they resemble actual identifiable people. So now you know why each and every single character looks like a fish or a frog. Because if they didn't, the creators of the show would go to jail. And when you've given your show basically this massive black mark, even to get started, this is another circumstance where you should have rethought everything. This show makes me incredibly uncomfortable in ways that most others do not. And it's not entirely because I have my own personal problems. The show takes a lot of influence from Family Guy, which is problem number one. If this list itself is anything to go on, that's a mistake in and of itself. But what I mean by that isn't that the bad animation or the humor is meant to be shocking. No, it's Family Guy and its dialogue and its pacing. Family Guy has very bad pacing. It's one of the worst aspects about it. So what Big Mouth will do is pick a topic of discussion and go on and on and on about it. And Family Guy, it's bad, but it's more forgivable when they're just talking about some random celebrity that no one has ever heard about or cares about. In this show, they basically go on in discussion about penises or ejaculation for like minutes at a time. Even if I wasn't grossed out, it gets old quick. It also has a lot of the drive-by opinions on current events or pop culture that Family Guy is known for as well, and it's bad at it. The writing of the show is terrible, and that's a problem. When you do this kind of show, talking about this kind of subject matter, you don't just need good writing, you need the best writing. For this show to work, it needs to be the best written thing that I've ever seen. Puberty isn't the hardest topic out there, but it can go wrong in very bad ways. And the writing here goes bad a lot. In episode 2, for instance, it's going into a girl getting her first period.
If you try to make a show about puberty, you need to have at least some good jokes. I have laughing at some of these jokes. I had to be the one who had to be a part of jokes, but I never say I like the show. Some of the jokes are funny, but I'm not saying that the show is good because I don't really have an opinion on the full show.
Daring topic to tackle, and it seems like they showcased the experience correctly and with respect. That episode also has a joke about a kid who was paralyzed because he got vaccinated. So, is this show meant to be an accurate reflection of reality or not? And this isn't an isolated incident either. The Family Guy style of humor does not work when you're trying to do something this incredibly serious. Topics like puberty and periods and questioning your sexuality in terms of writing, they're like surgery. And this show's tool of choice is a baseball bat. This is every single episode, by the way. Most infamously, of course, is their talk about pansexuality. This is something that's not talked about ever, and their discussion came across as extremely biphobic, basically saying that bisexual people were of lower morality than pansexual people. Now, a lot of people say that that's forgivable because it was a teenager saying that, and they wouldn't know any better. And you'd be right if this show wasn't meant to educate people on these topics. That's why this show is the way it is. It wants to relate to people going through puberty and give them some kind of guidance. And it just can't stop sticking a hot poker in its foot. Last time around, I watched one episode and I decided the show wasn't for me. This time around, I did stick around for multiple episodes, and it was some of the most grueling experience that I've ever had doing this review thing. I mean, it's meant to help teenagers cope with puberty. But for starters, if it was actually on TV, it would clearly be rated TV MA before it would be pulled off the air. And even then, the characters often talk to fantasy creations like the Hormone Monster or the Statue of Liberty. Teenagers, they're not going to respect that. They're going to find that stupid. So why isn't this show number one? Well, there is one...
Because teenage, at least when you become a teenager, I'm an adult. It's just not good at all.
Reason that I found. One reason that does give it some credit. These are topics that we should be less afraid to talk about as a culture. Things that Big Mouth talks about. We do have far too many hang-ups about sexuality and puberty and coming to know yourself in one way or another. And I understand how these things work. When it comes to these kind of topics, they almost always go like this at first. The first LGBT characters in cartoons, for instance, were extremely flamboyant and stereotypical. These would be seen as atrocious today, and you'd be blasted for homophobia. However, they were an important stepping stone to get where we are today. For example, in The Legend of Korra, it didn't reveal any LGBT implications until the last episode, the last possible moment, which probably led to things like The Loud House, which had recurring gay characters. This show could easily break the mold.
I hate about the last episode, Korra, because they try to tell you that, oh, Korra and Sami are lesbians, but no, they didn't show you through the whole season that they became a couple. since the end of the episode. Like, really? Then you have to read the book. Like, really? I don't want to read more Cora. I don't want to read Cora. I do not.
For someone else talking about puberty in a much more smart way. This show is incredibly stupid, but in terms of what it's actually trying to talk about, I've never seen it as being disrespectful. Big Mouth tries, and that's more than you could say about a lot of other shows. Not only does it try, it tries to do something good. It's just like bad at it, like awful, like puke-inducingly bad at it, like very little redeeming about what it actually accomplishes. And if there's a show that I'd like to forget about, this is on my list above Adult Party Cartoon. And it's not even my number one pick for the decade. We're gonna get to that in a few minutes, but first, some dishonorable mentions that didn't make the list for whatever reason. You might want to sit back because it's a long list. I could have made a top 30 of horrendous cartoons this decade.
So I plead with you, my plaza folks, please turn in all of your remotes. We can make the plaza safe for all. So what do you say? Let's end this brawl.
Let's start with Breadwinners. Hey, remember when
Breadwinners was awful. Breadwinners should have been in this list. But I'm glad he put honorable mention. At least it's honorable mention. He should have put this in this list. It's a bunch of fart jokes, and I hate all these characters. I've only seen a couple episodes, but I hate the show.
I said
I want to rewatch the show.
that this was the worst cartoon that I've ever...
It's like Sanjay and Craig, but with more crack. It's like the Craig was just taking more meth, but it's just making it way worse.
seen. It was funny back then. It's not funny no more. God, I wish that this was the worst cartoon that I've ever seen, instead of only barely qualifying for an honorable mention at this point. If you're wondering, there are like 30 cartoons now worse than Breadwinners. For example, Sanjay and Craig.
Yeah, Sanjay and Craig. Sanjay and Craig is even worse than Breadwinners. They do the same thing, but even worse is the throw up. The throw ups, come on. Breadwinners is just butt jokes and a little bit of fart jokes. But Sanjay Craig takes it way in another level. Like, you thought said the characters taking meth. These people taking crack. It's just way worse. It's just the throw ups. Stop it. I used to watch Sanjay Craig till I learned that it's just a garbage show.
It's bad. It's gross. It has nothing redeemable. And yes, for the last time, I have seen The Giving G. It was melodramatic and terrible. And it does not redeem a show that spent a whole episode with Sanjay naked in a lake. And that's not even touching the episode Unbarfable, which is probably in the top 10 of the most disgusting episodes that I've ever seen. That one episode is literally adult party cartoon bad. And yet, Sanjay and Craig doesn't manage to be as bad as The Adventures of Kid Danger. The only reason...
I hate this show. You know what? The animation is bad. The show is bad. But let's talk about the live action show. The live action show is so garbage. I hate Henry Danger. Henry Danger is just a terrible hero comedy show. It's just a bad show. If someone say they like Henry Danger, I don't know what's going on. But this show is terrible. You'd rather watch the Thundermans. You'd rather watch the other superhero TV shows. This show is just terrible. Henry Danger and the live action version and the cartoon version are both equally worse. They are both bad to me.
That this show isn't on the list is because Powerpuff Girls 2016 is, and they're more or less the same fucking show. Powerpuff Girls 2016 is only on the list instead of Kid Danger because it killed a franchise that I actually cared about. But if you really want to, consider it a tie for number 4. Monsters vs. Aliens.
Monsters vs. Aliens, I think it had like one season. I don't remember this show. I think I watched like one episode. It's garbage too. If you talk about the movie version looks way better than the cartoon version. The cartoon version just looks way worse than the movie version.
More time on this one sentence than they did actually making the fucking cartoon. Next, Neo Yokio. Hey, did you guys know that...
Everyone knew Neo Yokio was terrible. Everyone knew this show was terrible. I don't know why Jaden Smith wanted to make this show.
They animated Jaden Smith's Twitter account? Well, they did, and now there's Toblerones for everyone! Fleabag Monkey Face. This was going to be on the list until I realized that to say anything more about it would be about 100 times more effort than this show deserves. Fleabag Monkey Face is already a black hole of effort, and it doesn't deserve any more of my time or anyone else's. Teen Titans Go. This is...
Teen Titans Go to me is half. Because some of the episodes I did used to enjoy Teen Titans Go. It's not the worst cartoon, but it's just the characters. Starfire, she's alright. Raven, I just don't like how they make Raven. Beast Boy, Cyborg, they alright. It's Robin. Robin is just the worst character in the show. I hate how they treated Robin. It's like, oh my god, I hate Robin in this show.
Actually, not a dishonorable mention on this list. It's not even bad enough to be considered on a list like this.
Yeah, it's not that bad.
I'm only mentioning it here because people would be asking about it if I didn't. Now, keep in mind, I don't like this show. I still think that it's bad. Like,
Yeah, it's still not a good show. But you can't put in your like top 10 list. It's not the worst cartoon show you ever watch in your life. In his list, this is a lot of bad cartoon shows that Teen Titans is just an honorable mention.
a 10 bad. And not only do I not like this show, but not only that, but I think the original Teen Titans Go hate is kind of getting too much hate now. But when you get down to it, Teen Titans Go...
To me, I used to hate it, but now I'm like, I don't really hate it as much no more. I get it, it's for kids. In some of the episodes I did like, so it's like, it's half of me.
Is harmless, especially to other cartoon reboots, such as The Magic School Bus Rides Again.
Why you have to make a reboot of Magic School Bus, but a ugly animation? Then you replace Miss I forgot her name. I tried to say it, but I can't pronounce her name. Y'all replace her with her sister that no one cares about. It's like, no, I do not want. I haven't seen the show once because I don't want to watch the show.
This one I really wanted to review, and I still might get to. In terms of bare bones reboots, this might have been the worst of them all. So many questionable choices. And not to mention, if the original cartoon was animated better than your remake that came out 30...
Yeah, you can watch the old version. It's animated way better than this. I love the original Master School Bus. This one's is way awful.
Years later, you have a problem. You want to hear a funny story about this one, though? When the trailer first came out, it was hated beyond all belief. So, basically, someone at Netflix was like, oh my god, this thing is getting so much hate. We have to do something to stop this. How do we get people to shut up about the Magic School Bus Rides Again? And then the other guy was like, I don't know. What exactly do we do? I don't know. Just do anything. I got something that might take the attention off of the Magic School Bus Rides Again. Speaking of trailers, let's talk about Generation Z. This show never came out, but it deserves to be mentioned on this list. I want us to never forget this show ever.
No pun intended, but it takes balls.
Which apparently the creators of the show do not have, because this show never came out, and it has been given an indefinite hiatus. And this move just sums up the worst of the 2010s. I mean, it sounds really transphobic to make a show, or say you're making a show that's supposed to glorify trans rights and all that, and then just cower and never release it. Is this really how you're supposed to be representing people? You didn't make this show because you cared about trans rights. If this was something you actually believed in, you would have come forward. You would have released the show, screwing the haters, instead of being cowards like you were. This is a perfect example of a show that was just trying to cash in on social brownie points, and folding when they realized that it was going to be a little bit harder than they thought it would be. And it's shows like this that were the most damaging to social movements and things like trans rights, more than anything that the haters of a show like this could pull off. If you want to do something like this, do it. Don't back out of it, you spineless cowards. Border Town. And here we have a show by someone who tries doing things way too often. This show is often seen as a Seth MacFarlane show. It's not. He was just a producer, but he didn't actually create it. But whether or not he had any direct involvement, it's clearly just another Seth MacFarlane show, with the same basic setup and the same basic style of humor and the same lack of reason for existing. Legend of Chamberlain Heights. This is another show that I don't even want to dignify. It's not on this list because it shouldn't qualify for this list. I mean, it's the worst animation animations of the 2010s. This is not an animation. This is a mess. Any success that this one had was clearly AstroTurf. I remember you advertising on my channel. I don't mind networks advertising their cartoons on my channel. It's probably the best place for them to advertise. But if you're gonna do that, at least have the decency to be decent. No, instead the show just got 2 seasons because a little trick that networks like to do. They ask for 1 season's worth of episodes, and then they split it into 2 seasons, just to say that the show is popular enough to warrant 2 seasons. This is a trick that's becoming more and more popular so networks can boast in some stupid dick measuring contest. Bless the hearts. This is just a reminder that no matter how into animation and how thoroughly I've searched for the worst cartoons of the decade, I still haven't seen everything. Maybe the show belongs on the list, maybe it doesn't, I don't know. It came out late in the decade and I haven't seen it yet. I'll tell you if it belongs on here after I give it a good review. And finally, Alan Gregory. And here we have it. It didn't have enough episodes to qualify for this list, but this one is special enough to get a mention. Oh, it's an awful show. It's a god-awful show. It's one of the worst out there, despite having like 6 episodes. But Alan Gregory is important to me because it's my first worst show. It was like episode 17 or something. I've come a long way, and it just gives me the feels to think about this show and to talk about it on a list like this. For better or worse, I doubt I'm going to forget Alan Gregory. Now, let's talk about another show that I'm never going to forget.
So I plead with you, my plaza folks, please turn in all of your remotes. We can make the plaza safe for all. So what do you say? Let's end this brawl.
This list has been filled with controversial opinions, I'm sure. However, I believe that number 1 on this list is going to be the most controversial show that I've ever picked. How can that be? I mean, I've just talked about almost everything in the book at this point. We talked about sexuality, trans rights, feminism, and even Donald Trump. Well, I mean that's kind of unsurprising, though. I mean, it seems today that all you see is violence in movies and sex on TV.
That guy sucked.
Okay, so the first question is
I knew he gonna put Family Guy in this. Family Guy is just, I don't know what happened. It's just, and you try to rewatch Family Guy, just rewatch like season 1 through like, just watch the old Family Guy episodes. Cause at least in the old Family Guy episodes, you can just watch the show. Cause I love the original Family Guy episodes. It's like SpongeBob. You used to watch the old SpongeBob episodes and the old Simpson episodes. But when you watch the new episodes, they are garbage. They are garbage. Some of the jokes in the new Family Guy episodes are funny, but they are garbage as well. The show is just not good for me no more. It's just some of the jokes are funny, some of the jokes is not. I just can't stand this show no more. I'm going to rewatch the show and give my full opinion on the show, but right now, to me, this show is just bad. If you, for the old seasons, I think to season 5 or something or 6, you could give them some seasons like combine them 5 or 6 seasons like an 8 out of 10. But Family Guy now it just went to like a 5 out of 10 or 4. It's just not good at all.
Does this even count? Yes, it does. It had more than 12 episodes in the 2010s. It counts, by my definition. Not only that, but it has been airing continually throughout the 2010s, year in and year out, getting worse and worse with every single episode. And the show is of vastly different quality from its run in the previous decades. 2010's Family Guy is not the same show as 2000's Family Guy. They are not even...
2000 Family Guy was good. When it hit 2010s, this has gotten way worse. I don't know why. I just don't know what happened. 2000 Family Guy was one of the best Family Guy episodes. You can go back and watch 2000's Family Guy episodes and you're gonna have enjoyment. But the 2010s, they are awful. What good Family Guy episodes you can pick out of the 2010s? I don't even know, cause they are awful.
in the same ballpark. Hey, remember?
I hate Peter. I hate all the characters in the show. I hate Quagmire. I hate Peter. I hate Brian. Stewie is half of me because Stewie's still good, but they made him worse because they started to make him like, he stopped killing Lois. Now he's had to do like a guy who likes females, a guy who he's just a baby who's trying to see what sexuality he is. Meg to me is alright, and Chris too. I think it's just Meg, Chris, and Stewie, they are alright. But you talk about Brian, Peter, and Lois. These three are just god awful. They just made them worse. Peter, I used to love Peter. I used to love Brian. I used to. I was alright with Lois, but they all went to the tier of worst characters in this fucking show. With Quagmire, why would you ruin your good characters and you just made them worse?
When Meg was kind of a daddy's girl to Peter? No, you don't, do you? The Powerpuff Girls reboot has more to do with.
Y'all made Peter like Peter did some dumb things in 2000s, but he took it like to this extreme. He used to care about Meg, but now he just don't care. He don't care about his kids. He don't care about his wife. He just don't care about nobody. He don't care about nobody's safety.
The original show, then 2010's Family.
I will pause it again. The 2000s have morals and talk about life lessons. What the new Family Guy's lessons are? Nothing. They are horrible. They are bad. No life lessons at all. You had some life lessons, but they are bad. All are bad.
Guy has.
Especially when Quagmire supposed to go to jail because he had sex with a minor. He's supposed to go to jail, but they didn't put him in jail for some reason. Makes no fucking sense.
To do with 2000's Family Guy. I've been debating the entries on this list for a while now, but I've had it set that Family Guy was the worst of the 2010s since about 2016. And in that time, the show's gotten even worse. Look, you only get one sea or seashell party before you go on my permanent shit list. And this show gave me two of them. Back to back. Every problem that I've had with just about every other show on this list, on any list, is in this show, bright and clear. I'd count the reasons that I hate this show, but they don't make numbers that high. You know how I made an 8-part documentary in 2019? Well, I could make a trilogy of those on all my problems with just one season of Family Guy, and that's not an exaggeration. I'm trying.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch this one more time. All the problems he said through the whole video talk about sexuality, fart jokes, and everything else. You combine all these together and put in Family Guy 2010. This is how bad Family Guy gone.
To puzzle how not to do that here, and to keep this entry brief. But in every other entry, on every other worst list I've made, I can understand why someone somewhere watched that show. Even the most batshit stupid or ridiculous shows that are out there. I have no idea why anyone watches this show, for one main reason. This show legitimately does not like its audience. There is only one emotion that I get from Family Guy, and that is contempt. It actively hates its viewers. In my CRC Show Party review, I've come up with what I dubbed as the dad noises joke. It's one of those scenes where nothing funny happens, but it's just this small innocuous thing that goes on for like a minute or more. For example, Peter making just dad noises. It's not funny, but it happens like once an episode. One of the worst examples of this was in Quagmire's Mom, when they showed us a still image for about a minute while they waited for a song to start. Then of course there are the cutaways, which have gotten worse and lazier and just more frequent. No joke, in every single episode that I've reviewed, I cut off the cutaways. And sometimes the actual episodes, what you come in to watch, did not clock in at 11 minutes. That is pathetic. And the cutaways just keep getting worse and worse in quality. The worst of them is when Peter gored a whale for 2 full minutes. Why would anybody want to see this? It's not funny, it's not interesting, hell, it's not even disturbing, it's just sad and pathetic and a waste of time. Every single time any of these things happen, the show is insulting you, the audience. It is literally an admission that the show believes that you, the audience, will watch anything that is branded Family Guy. Even if it's something like Peter making random noises for a minute, or them cutting away to scenes they pulled out of a hat. And this wouldn't be so painful if it didn't cost $1 million per episode. Then there was the Brian fiasco. He was killed off for really reals, despite the fact that the
killed him off, brought him back. Now I'm like, just kill him. Just kill Brian. Y'all just I would have loved it if y'all just kill Brian off. At least he had some semblance of a character. But y'all brought him back because the fans wanted him back, and y'all decided to do a plot hole where Stewie, not a real plot hole, but it's just a story thing where Stewie went back in time, saved Brian. But now I'm like, why y'all did this? Because Brian is just a bad character.
episode where he came back to life was animated before the death episode even aired, because that's how animation works. And Seth MacFarlane thinks you're a moron. At least that's the best possible interpretation I could have. I'm sorry, but I just have no respect for that kind of thing. Taking a character that people do care for and killing him off for a marketing stunt, at best. At worst, it's just a sick joke to prank people. I've talked about how much I hate Brian. He is one of the most despicable characters out there in any sort.
He used to be one of my favorite doll characters back in the 2000s. He was just a good character. He at least teaches the characters how to not act stupid. And he had morals. But now he's just became worse. He's Quagmire, but a douchebag about it. But he's Quagmire, but a little bit of a smart ass. That's what Brian is. He's just a smart ass Quagmire. Quagmire. I used to like Quagmire, but he just became worse in that episode when he had sex with a minor. Like I said, a minor. He just became a sucky ass character too. The show, the 2000s. Just end the show. It's just bad.
Of media. And speaking of Brian's death, the first reaction to killing off a mainstay character, in my mind, shouldn't be good. He deserves it. And after you bring a character like that back to life, it's definitely the wrong move to make his next few episodes absolutely horrendous and make it look like reviving him was a mistake on every single level. It's
a super mistake. Y'all turned him bad. Y'all turned him like a terrible character before his death. And now y'all bring him back, and now he's just equally bad now. Now everyone's like, oh, we wish he was dead.
not that he's just unlikable. There's an episode where Brian gives Stewie herpes for no reason. And it's like, okay, that's not funny. Like, what is the point of this? Then there's the episode, Brian's a bad father. Yes.
Yeah. So this is a bad episode of Brian.
Yes, Brian is a bad father. What's the point? Is this supposed to be funny?
Hey, Lois, if I was going to kill myself, do I slit my wrists this way or this way?
Sideways for attention, long way for results. Meg is right.
Okay, I'll be in the garage.
Because it's not funny. That's probably the most damning thing about this show. It is not funny in any stretch of the imagination. Even if it was funny at one point, they've taken each and every joke that they've ever told and repeated it ad nauseum. You get the same exact things in each and every single episode. That is actively insulting the concept of comedy. And not only that, it makes the time where these jokes first appeared even more insufferable. The first time that Peter hit his shin and was going back and forth in the very first Dad Noises joke was probably funny the first time it was aired. Nowadays, it's painful, and it forces my TV to just turn right off. The episode itself hasn't changed at all, but future episodes have just driven that joke so far into the ground that it's an active black hole of comedy. And then there are episodes like Screams of Silence. You know, this show that literally had ads where the entire Griffin family is beating each other up, wants to take a moment and tell us about how serious domestic violence is, and how seriously we should take it. Yeah, that's like listening to Ted Bundy lecture you about table manners. And that episode expects you to take this shit seriously. Oh yeah, it makes me feel really caring about the issue to hear Quagmire.
I love how they talk about domestic violence. And the whole characters in the show and mostly half of the single episodes is pure doing domestic violence. Like, don't give me that shit and tell me, oh, take domestic violence seriously. Then your whole show is mostly domestic violence. It's just so bad, so dumb. It's like, oh my god, it loses my fucking mind.
Saying that you're not a real woman if you're being abused. That fucking shit is demented. Almost as demented as telling abuse victims that they have a purpose being a lightning rod for other people's terror.
I love when Meg told all these characters off. I love how Meg told Peter off. I love how she told Lois off. I love how she told Chris off. Cause these three are bad. Chris, Chris is half for me. Cause Chris is like, sometimes I hate Chris. Sometimes I'm okay with Chris. Meg, she's just I still feel so bad for Meg. And I love that episode when she just told them off. Then they changed their mind and said like, okay, I just have to become an abuse victim for my family so they can stay as a family. But no, that's really dumb. You just tell them off. Tell them that y'all are a horrible family, especially Peter. I hate this episode. I love it and hate this episode because now they just transport back to like Meg went back as a family abuse victim, and he said like what Peter is doing is the right thing because he's crying and sad even though he deserves this.
Terrible behavior. And I do want to remind you, 2 episodes aired back to back. But it's all jokes. You shouldn't take any of this shit seriously. It's all jokes. You know, except the half the time the show wants you to take its opinion seriously. They've got plenty of episodes trying to tell you deeply about what it wants you to think. It's like that Big Mouth joke, except it's in every single scene. If the people who made the show didn't want you to take it seriously at all, they would have never made that bore fest that is Brian and Stewie. If you take the show entirely as a comedy, it's not funny. If you want to take it as a drama, I'm sorry, I stopped caring about Brian and Stewie's relationship when you had Brian eat Stewie's shit. And let's put Brian aside, because the worst character on the show is Quagmire. Why?
He's the worst character in this fucking show. I'm like, and I hate the fact that they try to make Quagmire and Brian like hate each other, even though they're both like the same. But Stewie, but no, not Stewie. Brian tried to be a little bit more respectful for females. He at least date them and marries them, but even he is a shit ass character. But Quagmire, he's the opposite of Brian. He just sleeps with them. Like I said about the a minor character, he's just a fucking idiot, and he's infuriating too with Brian.
Because he's constantly the audience surrogate. If that doesn't tell you the show's attitude towards the audience, nothing will. Quagmire is someone who's constantly used as a standing in for the audience, you know, when he berated Brian, for instance, with audience complaints. There's also the fact that Quagmire's a literal rapist. Not only that, but he's had sex with someone who was underage. And the show wanted you to care when he was put on trial for statutory.
I don't care. He should have went to jail.
Even though one of his go-to drinks for one of his dates is a roofie colada. No. Quagmire deserves to be locked up for the rest of his life and have his testicles shot off with a rifle and then electrocuted. And even that would be too good for Quagmire. And I get this question a lot. Did I ever think the show was good, or was there episodes that I like? You know what? Quite frankly, I don't give a shit. Everything Family Guy has given me this decade makes it more than worth it to just wish the whole franchise away. So, to answer this question once and for all, no, I am not planning on doing an admirable animation of Family Guy. Not now, not in the past, not ever. Road to Rhode Island, PTV, all of the good episodes you could pull out of your ass aren't worth one of the episodes I reviewed. And at this point, I've talked about like a dozen of them. And that's even ignoring the episodes that I ignored. Like the episode where Stewie gets pregnant with Brian's puppies. Because these were just pitiful attempts to
God, this episode. Oh God.
shock, and I am done with this. I mean, it's not even sad now, watching these desperate attempts to try and get people to watch. Once again, it costs $1 million to make one of these episodes. That is $180 million wasted on the show in the 2010s alone. That's enough to get you to the moon and back 3 times over. You can buy a home for every homeless person in San Francisco with that kind of money. But no, instead of that, we need to see more stories about Peter trying to marry his son, or Peter pouring eggnog on Carter trying to make it look like a porno. And I'm not going to lie, one of the main things that did cement it as #1 status here is the influence of Family Guy. How many shows on this list that I mentioned alone were
every single show with Family Guy? No, I want to say Simpsons because Simpsons caused this, but Simpsons didn't infuriate you. You can watch new Simpsons episodes and most of them don't infuriate you. You can still watch like the new Simpsons. I don't know, okay, I ain't watched the new Simpsons. But when Family Guy hit and became popular, and when it hit 2010s, every single cartoon became Family Guy, and they are all equally as bad as Family Guy, but Family Guy is even worse than these shows.
Clearly inspired by Family Guy. Every single cartoon inspired by Family Guy in any way whatsoever is worthless. It is pointless. It is the degradation of animation. SpongeBob had the decency to get better. The Simpsons had the decency to stay quiet. The Fairly Odd Parents had the decency...
Yeah, Simpsons stay quiet. What episodes you seen that Simpsons had a bad episode? Not really, because a lot of people don't really talk about Simpsons. Simpsons just became so quiet. It's Family Guy. Family Guy is just equally worse because every time you see the episode, it's just become way infuriating.
Go away. Family Guy has none of the above because it hates the concept of decency, and it's been trying my patience now for more than half the decade. And let me calm down right now. If I had to say something to Seth MacFarlane himself, I have to say this. Please stop. Stop trying to be funny. You are not funny. You're not a comedian. I know that you want to entertain people and make them laugh, and that is definitely admirable. I've also heard that you do suffer from depression, so maybe you think that trying to be funny is all that you have, but you are not an untalented guy. You may have signs of doubt, but try something new for once. And I don't mean try something that isn't a cartoon. Please try something that's not a comedy. Write something dramatic for once. Or hell, get out of the writing business altogether and become a singer. Because if there's one thing that you're good at, is singing. Trust me. You do not want Family Guy to be the big thing that you're known for the rest of history. I don't want that for you, and I hope to the fans that you don't want that either. It's gotten stale years ago, and it does nothing anymore but breed bitterness and resentment. Please, find a new act, and I will be there for you. But keep on this path, and I don't see it panning out in any positive way whatsoever. Family Guy is just going to get worse and worse. I'm Mr. Enter saying, I hope none of this crap survives into the 2020s, even though like half of these shows are still airing. I eagerly await the new flavors of shit that we have to deal with in the upcoming decade. And who knows, maybe someday I'll still be around on YouTube to make the top 10 worst cartoons of the 2020s.
I hope y'all enjoyed this video. I had my rant on Family Guy too with his video. But I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Like, subscribe to the channel, and subscribe to the Mysterious Mr. Enter. I have to say, this was a good part 2s of the worst cartoons of 2010s. But I thought I thought he was about to do a actual list of his worst cartoons, but he did a list of the worst cartoon of 2010s. But I'm okay with it. It was still a good video. But I hope y'all enjoyed this video, and see you guys later.